Hey, welcome everybody back to the Actuality. I am your host, Zach, otherwise known as Great Zamino. Never mind the changing screen on OBS there. As per usual, I am joined by four very wonderful cast members, starting with on my left on screen, playing one of our resident two apostates, Marcy.
Hey, it's Marcy, aka Experimental Madness, and that's what you can find me on most places around the internet. And like always on our Sundays into the City of Notions, I am playing Gavriel Glinsky, the ardent iconoclast apostate who hosts a choir and part-time vigilante.
Part-time vigilante.
I feel like I need to add more to my titles because Marissa just keeps extending the list and it makes me feel very inferior.
Kyrrie would be so glad to hear you say that.
But we're gonna work on it.
Oh yeah, we're down. I think that I am amenable to this. I'm just gonna have to keep updating character entries. That's the fun part of RPGs, right? Is just all of the advancements, I should say, we accumulate over time. And once again, below her on my left, playing our resident weaver, Bill.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bill, also known as Ghost Spike on the Discord. I'm playing Maurice Webb, the stalwart empath of the Order of Weavers who turns tales into reality. And I just gained myself a pupil that I'm going to start teaching.
Yeah, that is going to be very interesting to see how all that works out. I'm very looking forward to that. Our second resident apostate on the right on screen is played by Hopper.
It's me, Hopper. What's up? They, them. I use they, them pronouns, and as does my character Twigg, who is a rambunctious, that's not an official adjective, I'm just adding that in there, iconoclastic, not iconoclastic, mendicant, gallant mendicant apostate who noms on knowledge.
Nom nom.
Nom 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 nom.
And finally, rounding out our ragtag crew, our resident Vance, played by Marissa.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marissa, also known as Critical Kitten on the interwebs, and I play Kyrrie von Hollingsworth, first assistant librarian of the Order of the Vance. She is an aromatic stoic who understands the words, velator of the Vance, explorer of mirrors, curator of a fire mobster's library, and probably most importantly to her, guardian of Zaleska's grimoire. And last we saw Kyrrie, she was a surprise attendee of a weaver ceremony without a thing at all to wear.
That was the most important part. I love it.
That's your personal nightmare.
Pretty much.
So guys, we've had some really interesting couple of sessions here. We've actually had some, for the first time in a long time, you guys have had a lot of unstructured downtime. And you guys have been, acquiescing to the needs of that by basically acting on your interests, or your character's interests, rather. For instance, sensing that he needed to get powerful after having an encounter with a previous version of himself, or a past version, or whatever kind of maybe illusion this might be. Maurice has decided to restart training in the Order of the Weavers, working to attain access to another aggregate, which is the concept that all weavers are able to wield in order to make magical threads. On the other hand, we have two separate apostates building homes for themselves. One in the, both of them on the outskirts of the ruined expanse, with the exception that one of those areas has been reclaimed. Twigg, you've been building a nice little arboreal getaway that was unfortunately, you realized, neighbored a rather unsavory character that you've encountered before in the form of Slipping Jack. So
This is fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Everything's under control.
Yeah, and while that loudly sipping the tea, at the same time, you have also been creating more friends and helpers for yourself in the form of creatures like Fix-Up or similar ones akin to Literalum and their Folding Crane companion. That is something that you've been really kind of doing a lot of interesting stuff with. At the same time, though, on the polar end of that spectrum, in the Ruined Expanse, in her own kind of headquarters, Gavriel has been building a secret vigilante resistance slash murder board room that I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this goes. You also went ahead and decided to kind of work on getting your vigilante suit together, which will yield some interesting results should you have the time to pick it up at some point.
As I said before the stream, which I feel like the audience does need to hear, the aesthetics have to be right or there can't be any crimes.
No crimes without
No
good
crimes without
aesthetics.
aesthetics.
So that's actually one thing Kyrrie would agree with about crime.
Terrific. I'm glad we're good on the costume.
The most well-dressed burglars you're ever going to meet.
Glad you guys have your priorities straight.
Also, finally, Kyrrie, you've been kind of having to deal with not only some kind of distrust among your Vancian colleagues, but also you have been kind of having to try to manage the expectations of King Nine, who can be fairly terrifying to deal with if you don't have the kind of chutzpah that you've exhibited recently. But we'll see how that pans out. And in the meantime, you've been making some progress studying your grimoire. When I say your grimoire, I mean Zaleska's, of course. So, but that said, you are its keeper, so it might as well be yours, right?
We can have certainly a conversation with Celestial Grimoire about possession and whether or not it's 9/10 of the law, but might be an interesting scene.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm looking forward to that one. So, without further ado, let us go ahead and step into the actuality and begin with a nice little song as we rejoin Maurice at the ceremony for Kyrrie, your mentor, who has just attained the 4th degree within the Order of Weavers. So I think that it is following Kyrrie's demonstration of the new art of the weave that he has brought to the fore with regard to the order, and everybody has kind of politely clapped, and it's about that time when you saw this kind of lightning creation that Kyrrie crafted, Kyrrie, that you finally kind of get a sense of your surroundings and where Maurice is in relation to everybody within this kind of small ashram that Maurice, in which Maurice resides, or in which Kyrrie resides. So the first thing that you guys realize is that there's a lot of different kinds of people here. All of them, for the most part, Vizsla. You did kind of notice that there are some more kind of central and prominent figures. The main one, which is a tall, very dark-skinned man, which upon some observation, Maurice, you realized had 3 lines running up, 3 parallel lines running up each eye, above their eye, rather, above his eyebrows. And he is the most prominent of the prominent figures. He is holding court within this area, and he realized that he was referred to by Kyrrie as Kyrrie's own mentor or master. So that would put him probably at either a 5th or a 6th degree at minimum.
I've not heard the name of this person, have I?
You have not.
Mm-hmm.
So, I will say this. Maurice, where is your attention right now?
Maurice's attention is fully on Kyrrie. And he has been, he was looking very intently at the weave that was just performed and admiring its ingenuity and its novelty. So which is to say he is not aware that Kyrrie is in attendance at all.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, and I think Kyrrie, are you kind of taking everything in, or are you kind of like scouting around? What's your kind of reaction to all of this?
Well, I mean, I think it's come as quite a surprise to her that she's sort of waltzed into a weaver ceremony, but at the same time, I think she kind of recognizes it for what it is in terms of, being somewhat similar to the Vancian ceremonies of the same kind, albeit a different flavor. She kind of picks up on the fact that like this has something to do with advancement within the order. So she's kind of not sure what her place is here as someone who is not a weaver. So she's been kind of sticking to the back. Meanwhile, thinking, as I said before, oh God, I'm not dressed for a ceremony. I have no idea like how to interact or how I should be interacting at this. So I think she's going to scout around, probably first and foremost for Maurice, to see where he might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And do me a favor and make me a perception roll as you begin kind of circumnavigating the party.
Sure. That is a 4.
Okay. So on a 4, you realize a few kind of cursory things. The main thing being that most of these people are Vizsla. Most of them are weavers. You kind of like would maybe kind of imagine there's probably more kinds of Vizsla here. But for the most part, what you're really kind of taken aback by is how unstructured and how informal this gathering is. It's not where like a Vancian campus gathering where everybody's kind of putting on their finest. They're kind of working to kind of like curry favor with professors who are also equally dressed and dapper. A lot of this it's very bohemian. You kind of imagine that like you've probably seen this outside of like formal circles. A lot of like workmen like kind of people from your time in Shadow. This reminds you a lot of that, and like kind of like when you did reading on the Libertines and kind of people that are a little bit more dandified and more independent. This is kind of like the mood that's striking you as you wander around the party.
I think that's something that would be familiar to Kyrrie, in that her coming from the 1930s in the gray, that was of course right after the 1920s, which was in itself kind of like the bohemian version of the 70s when we think of bohemian now. So I think she would have been aware of that kind of release from formality and a lot of structure, and this would be familiar to her, at least given what she's gone through in the gray.
Absolutely. And I think that, I think after some time you do kind of finally kind of locate Maurice. But as you kind of begin moving towards your friend, Maurice, you've been watching Kenroy for a while, and Mac's kind of been this young kind of overalled country, fresh out of Shadow Vizsla, has been kind of like following at a distance, kind of like the same way you're watching Kenroy, he's watching you. Kind of like, I think less for you, kind of like for you it's more, I imagine it's interest in kind of what how your mentor is navigating this, but you kind of see...
I'm imagining like every time I shift position, he's shifting position as well to do the same.
Exactly. He's looking to you for cues on what to do. And there, I think at some point you catch yourself like kind of like putting down a drink, and he seems to put down the drink at the same time. You see you've got your kind of tentacles, your tentacle kind of moving around in a weird fashion, and he's trying to kind of like hold his hand in a similar fashion, like, you know, doing kind of like mixing the fingers, and then he kind of like looks up, like looks down and kind of like thinks better about it and just holds his hand by his side.
I think at this point, I'm going to choose to have Duncan notice Kyrrie.
Yeah, and Kyrrie, as you're kind of making your way over, woof, you hear and feel a familiar snuffling at your side.
What's a little unfamiliar about this is you see Duncan normally, if anything, has a very bare collar with a leash that Maurice barely pays attention to. But now Duncan has a very elaborate scarf with a kind of checkered pattern, and it more not even like a scarf, but also kind of along the back, so like maybe a little like jerkin. And so this is notable to you, having seen Duncan many times before.
I think Kyrrie's gonna sink down kind of on her knees, which is somewhat of a display, and if people are too close to her, they might have to back up because like her gown swoops out in like a full circle when she sinks to her knees. And she like scritches Duncan under the chin and goes, "Duncan, you're dressed for the occasion, now aren't you?" And I think she's going to root around in her bag for a like spare bit of tenure cheese that she just like has from her dance ceremony, and like feed a little bit of tenure cheese to Duncan.
Yeah, and Duncan just snorfles it up and kind of I think probably leads you towards Maurice, kind of while expectantly kind of like looking back every time, making sure you're following.
Yeah, I'll say Maurice, hears this, or at least, and turns his attention and puts his left hand on Mac's leg and says, I'll be right back, and gets up and just walks over to you, and with like mid stride just picks you up in a hug, and your dress is kind of lifted off, and I think at this point probably the ceremony is starting to break up a bit, like the big show is over and people are going off to gather their own things, and Maurice looks at Kyrrie and sets her down and says, you came.
I seem to have picked an auspicious day to visit you. I had no idea this was going to be happening.
Did I not mention that? Sorry.
No, what is this? It's a ceremony, right? Like an advancement for the Weavers, right?
Yes, that man there is Kenroy. He is the one who inducted me. He actually has given me a pupil as well. This is, I did say in my letter, this is where I intend to stay for this month.
You did, but you said nothing about becoming a teacher, and now Kyrrie's eyes are like sparkling.
I think it's part of I just wanted to learn more, but I have to take on a student in order to learn more.
Of course.
It's
part of passing down knowledge. It's an important rite of passage, Maurice. Have you ever taught anyone before?
I assume it can't be that different from working in the acclimation center. It's a little balance of talking and listening, right?
I suppose, although you are responsible for someone's intellectual development, which is a little different, I'd say. You can't kind of close the book on them, maybe in the same way that you could when you were working with the Hindasa, I think.
Oh, speaking of, I closed the book. I quit.
Oh, good for you. I was honestly been waiting for that to happen probably as long as I've known you. You remember when I tried to convince you to leave the Hindasa a long, long time ago?
I think you were trying to convince me to become a Vance.
Of course I was. I thought you had the aptitude for it, but then again, I was a little biased.
I don't blame you. Listen, it's a party. Stay. Come meet my pupil. And he ushers you over.
But I'm not dressed for this occasion.
And Maurice offers a hand up and yanks Mac up to the floor and, and says, Mac, please introduce yourself. This is my good friend Kyrrie. She is advanced of what degree again?
Second, I'm a Velator.
Oh wow, that's real fancy. Velator. It's like velvet.
Yes. You might say that. And you are Maurice's student?
Yes, I'm Mackenzie, but folks just call me Mac.
Mac. And how long has it been since you came to the Actuality?
Well, it's only been a couple of months now. I think, I ran into Mr. Maurice here, Mr. Webb, and he kind of got me out of some trouble, which I'm very much appreciative of.
Oh, well, he's very good at that.
Yeah, I will tell you, this is just, it's a whole lot to get used to, and I think I'm starting to remember some of it, but a lot of it's just real weird.
It is indeed. If you could, go find us, drink for yourself, drink for me, and Kyrrie, and find a spiders game and let's set it up on the balcony.
Oh, well, I heard there's a big one gonna come up soon. I heard that Mr. Rajothmos is gonna actually play Kenroy.
Oh, well, we'll definitely be sure to see that, but I need to teach you how to set it up, and I've been trying to get Kyrrie to play for years.
Spiders game. Yes, I've always been interested in that. Something like the human chess that we played back in the Grey.
Quite similar, actually. If it's a reflection of anything, it's that.
Well, I've always loved chess, so would be glad to learn.
Yeah, and as you kind of as Mac goes away to fetch the drinks, and as the party begins to kind of disseminate and kind of filter out, there is one person that I think that you might have been hoping would come, Maurice, but hasn't kind of arrived yet, and that person being Ashwin. Can you describe for me, if we kind of look back in time very recently to earlier during this month of recuperation and rest and study, what was it like when you saw Ashwin?
So this would be just a few days ago, right after being discharged from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely went to find them. Where did I find them?
I think as soon as you get out of the hospital, you ask one of the attending to locate the whereabouts of Ashwin Kyrrie, and Ashwin, you realize, is still recuperating.
In the hospital.
In the hospital in Merryweather. And Yi-Mon is nowhere to be seen. You're kind of escorted by one of the attending physicians that was assisting Yi-Mon, the angel that administered to your wounds. And you realize that she was doing the same for Ashwin, at which point you have been directed to Ashwin's room, listed as friends and family. So basically, she kind of did you a solid and made sure that you would have an opportunity to sit with him, or with them, pardon me.
Maurice knocks on the door and tells Duncan to wait outside.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you hear a weak voice just say, "Come in."
And Maurice opens the door. What does he see?
You see Ashwin, and Ashwin seems to have a good deal of color back in their face. That kind of lightly dark skin is kind of getting back more of its color. The black hair, there's a few gray strands running through it, almost like a long streak of white. There, at the same time, on the temples where you remember the hate cyst growth was attached, there is some scarring, and one of the irises of sorry, I need to turn down the music for me a bit. One of the irises that Ashwin is looking out at you at is milky white, but also shining a little like moonlight. There's a glint to it that you never saw before, and it's just completely over one eye. And you kind of wonder what that might signify, but you just hear Ashwin weakly say, "Maurice, you came."
And I didn't know we were just a couple floors away. And he pulls up a chair and takes a pitcher of water in a glass and reaches for it with his tentacle arm, then thinks better, puts the glass down, and then pours it with his left hand.
Would you say that as you reach out with the tentacle hand that Ashwin, do you think that Ashwin would have a chance to see it?
Well, let's have them roll perception. This would be a very quick. This is still Maurice is very aware of it. So I think it's the muscle memory of, and I'm going to reach. No, I'm not. Mm-hmm. So this would be a very quick flash, unless if they were paying attention, they might see it.
You know what? We haven't done it yet. I'm gonna turn a card.
I love it.
Okay. This is the Endless Woods. I am just going to treat this as a lower high. The number on the card is 3, and besides, everything's kind of dark in this landscape of this Endless Woods card. So I'm going to say that they missed it. They did not see the hand, and at which point I think that Ashwin, eyes half lidded, reaches out for a hand, probably your left, not seeing the right.
Maurice kind of slides the cup over on the tray next to the bed and reaches out and clasps it and says, how are you?
Well, I'll have to say I've been better, but I'm better now that you're here. I think I owe my life to you.
I'm just glad you're alive.
I'm glad I'm alive too.
I have to ask.
Yes?
What did you see? What did it do to you?
I was following up on a lead. And I was close to the opera house, and I just heard this voice calling to me. And when I went inside, I don't know, it was like it was showing me things. It was showing me all the things I could build. These massive structures. It said I would improve on this design in every way. And I don't know, I just stopped seeing anything else. And you remember when their eyes were completely black and opaque. And this kind of tracks with, your recollection. I don't know, I think there was a party, and I think I saw you, and before I knew it, I was back in the opera house. What happened?
You were like you were possessed. You were like you were being pulled on a string. I followed you, my friends and I. This hate cyst showed me nightmares, and and he unfurls his arm, and it gave me this.
Oh, Maurice. Oh my gosh. And then they kind of reach out very tentatively for the tentacle hand, and as they do, you realize that you remember that fractal kind of star-like armor that armored up Ashwin when they invoked their secret soul.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that there is more of these kind of geometric patterns and fractal crystals, but they seem to be growing out of their skin.
Are they reacting to the tentacle, or it's just been there?
No, they're just there, and there's they are kind of almost like an amethyst color, and there's a deep kind of star-like blackness within these crystals, and you realize that they're kind of dotting along the skin of their forearm. And reaches out and places a hand on your tentacle hand and just looks at you, and Ashwin says, "Well, aren't we a pair?"
You can say that again.
So work has they got back to me and they let me know that I'm on leave until I feel ready to come back, but how long did they give you?
If they've been trying to reach me, I've ignored it. I've got a letter in my pocket that's a notice of resignation, and I'm going to send it when I leave.
You're leaving? You're leaving the organization. I am going to turn a card to see how that makes Ashwin feel. And this one is the Eternal Mountain. Unchanging, solitude, memory, eternal, long life. The mountain stands alone and unchanging. It always has, and it always will. Some find this compelling, others terrifying. The mountain sees all and never forgets what it has seen. Eternal card is the location card of the Vision's family. I think... yeah, this part of the game narrative is that an NPC will not be changed. Or someone remembers something important.
I am of the Vision's family.
And yeah, I think that Ashwin is thinking and kind of biting their lip and opens their mouth to say something, thinks better of it, and kind of downcast their eyes, and then they light up as they realize the Miller. Do you think that this is a wise idea? This will definitely draw attention, especially now that a hate cyst has been... I think that you might leave the organization. The organization's not going to leave you anytime soon.
And Maurice puts his good hand on Ashwin's skin and says, Ashwin, and leans in closer and says, a Chardalon. What does this mean for you in the organization? You're going back to work in what, after a moment of leave?
Well, people need to be saved. We need to pull them back out. There's so many left. I can't just... And Ashwin's kind of chest convulses, and then I can't just leave them.
Maurice hands them the water.
Yeah, and quickly just takes a big sip. If we leave them, they're just going to be lost there for the rest of their lives.
I'm not interested in rehashing an argument that we've had many times, but literally take a look at yourself.
And
your works are here and they're healed. You could heal the opera house. It's ready for you.
that place almost killed me, Maurice.
And we've excised the tumor.
But it could come back, these things. I mean, one wrong pylon placed the wrong place, some sort of excavation, anything, a ruptured main, anything could cause this thing to, one of these things to leak back in. What business do I have building anything in this ruin?
It's always been your business. I was hoping that this gave you a new light to see things with, and I can't make you see what it is that I see, but I see a night sky that's dark and needs the stars and needs the moon.
As you say this, Maurice, the light on the edge of the table near Ashwin's bed, it seems to glimmer a little bit brighter, and these little kind of, you think you see things moving in the edge of your vision, and you feel kind of a glow, kind of like almost like a cold glow on your face, as your senses kind of reach out and they feel something, just grasping at something. And you realize with some kind of familiarity that this is very much like when you first reach out to feel the aggregates of heart and wind. And you realize that you can just barely touch the aggregate of moonlight as it seems to suffuse the room. You realize that if you worked hard enough, if you marshaled your efforts and explored this feeling, perhaps with Kenroy's help, and perhaps by using your feelings with Ashwin as a focus, you could probably seize control of this aggregate. The question is whether or not this is what you need right now.
Maurice lets his words hang in the air a bit and squeezes Ashwin's arm and lets go and says, "How long till you're discharged?"
Well, they have asked me to just stay as long as I need to. The city's paying.
Good. Good.
Yes?
I'm glad you're getting the care you need. Listen, I don't know if you're feeling up to it, but later this week at Kenroy's, I'll be attending his ceremony. I think it'll be fun. Yeah, if you're feeling well enough, of course. I'd love to see you. Duncan would too.
Well, maybe I'll show up just for Duncan. And they wink at you with their one unclouded eye. And we are going to, as the scene kind of fades on this memory and you are downcast, kind of looking, your mind, your thoughts bent on that moment, you hear a door open. And you see Ashwin walking through it and looking for people that they recognize. And we're going to cut from there. And I'm going to turn a card and see whether or not, which of our apostates we visit next. Oh boy. Assassin, the adept of mysteries, rats, mirrors, and stone. The assassin is the adept of mysteries. Remind me, who is mysteries, rats, mirrors, and stone? Okay. You know what? I think from association then. Gavriel.
Yup.
You have been plotting and scheming while all of this is kind of going on with your friends across the city. You are kind of burrowing into your kind of conspiracy headquarters at the Ruined Expanse. Or is that what you're doing? What do you think you would be up to at this moment?
Definitely over the course of that, how many days has it been?
It has been, I'm going to say that the first week was spent studying with Kyrrie. I think the second week was kind of going around and looking at necessities and probably additional research. Mm-hmm. And also putting in your order with Luster. So I imagine this is either middle of the second week, maybe the beginning of the third.
Great. Well, some of those days are definitely spent cleaning out the rubble in the immediate vicinity of what I'm using as a base. Mm-hmm. I picked a building that I knew had a sub-level, or at least one that had been bombed out, and I'm trying to figure out how to convert it into something that will provide adequate shelter from both the higher ups in Citrine, along with whatever could be out in the Ruined Expanse. And I've also been doing a lot of reconnaissance in the Marquess district, mm-hmm. Which has the bank that I'm hoping to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of rooftop nights, memorizing guard positioning, figuring. I probably have walked in there as a regular customer to get a feel for the layout, how many tellers there are, what's the situation inside.
Okay, so as you are, I would like you to go ahead and how would you like to go about? I think that this is more kind of akin to what you would like to, how you would want to go about this. Are you trying to kind of perceive things? Are you trying to kind of sneak around and see what you find out? Are you asking around for additional kind of criminal kind of resources? Are you referring to your angels? Like, what are you doing?
I think this is, she wants to keep it as quiet as possible, which means no asking around of which I think she would feel would be like, yeah, let me just casually talk about this bank and what it got hit. Amazing. What a coincidence that is. I think a lot of it is just layout. I think she's making her own map of what she can see and particularly good weak points to enter.
Okay, so in that case, I would like you to go ahead. I think it sounds like you are rolling with perception.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that if you would like, you can use hidden knowledge, and you can also, if you would like, either add a bene or roll sortilege, depending on how well you roll on a straight roll. I will tell you how you do, what you
Cool.
find
I'm
out.
going to use both of those because I have so much of all of them.
Okay, so you start with a venture of 1. Do you have any perception or observation related skills?
I have I have marksmanship, but I have no specific skill in perception. I just have a lot of bene in it.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and if you want, you can either add a bene or you can roll an additional die with sortilege. What'd you do?
No, I'll keep that because that's an 8.
Awesome. Okay, so starting with a 2 and adding an 8, you get 10. So on a 10, you find out a few interesting things about the Marcus Quarter.
You tell.
One of which is that there are contingents of pristine guardsmen pretty much stationed at every other block. But there is a pattern to how they move and how they react. You are starting to kind of realize that if they are at all kind of actual sapient beings, that they move fairly mechanically and fairly according to a set pattern. So you are beginning to notice patterns in their movement and in their patrols around the city. It seems like where one goes around the block, it probably takes maybe a minute or 2 for another one to relieve them and kind of adjoin where their previous position was. It kind of like, it's like watching a light trace around an Ouroboros. Like kind of like think of it almost like as Pac-Man going around like in a figure 8 position, except at a slower rate, obviously. So not only that, but the bank that you have your eyes set on, the Marquis First Triumvirate National. Why not? We are, I'm going to say that there is one major entrance. There is, the edifice itself seems to be fairly impregnable on first glance. There is, however, you of course know that there are means by which Vizsla might be able to penetrate even like the strongest edifice of stone. So you are kind of, your mind swims with those possibilities. And occasionally on a 10, you see a fairly well-to-do teller or well-to-do manager tend to leave at a certain interval. And when that person leaves, the way they leave is they seem to open an aperture in one of the walls of the building that previously was not there. You get all of this on a 10. And I'd say that basically tell me how you, like, where your hidden knowledge would come in to kind of help you acquire this knowledge. Where do you think that extra insight comes in?
Well, I've been doing a lot of underworld gigs in my past year in the city. I imagine one of those was at one point robbing, or at the very least on the receiving end of a drop, even if I wasn't planning the operation myself, for some of the other banks in the city.
Excellent.
And so I know how to plan for one of these heists, or at the very least get ready for it.
Awesome. And on a 10, I'm going to give you one additional bit of information.
All right.
Which is one person you notice making additional deposits, somebody who seems with over the course of the week, you notice one person in particular, or should I say one entity, seems to basically fly in at the first opportunity on a set given day on Monday. In fact, there is a large angel that basically seems to stride through the front doors, a member of two pristine guardsmen acting as the guards. They open the doors for this large angel to walk through. And the angel itself, 6 eyes, 3 running up each side of their forehead, which is long and sloping up into almost kind of this conical point. Their skin is alabaster white. Those eyes are black as pitch, and they have 6 or 7 at any given point wings on their back, one of which seems to rotate from one side to the other. And not only that, they are clad in what look to be very fine silks, arrayed with a number of kind of scarlet accents, as well as circular rings of gold.
Note to self, don't rob this bank on a Monday.
Mm-hmm. And then, so I will say that is the information that you gather from your reconnaissance.
Amazing.
What else do you do? What else do you get up to?
Oh boy. How remind me how long it was to receive the armor?
1 week. So at the end of this week, you can pick up your armor.
Hell yeah.
So are you heading back to the Celestial Bazaar and grabbing the work from Luster?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you make your way back to the Celestial Bazaar, I'm going to turn a card.
This is me checking my money.
Excellent. Okay. So this is the Misunderstood Beast. Misunderstood Beast is a gentle giant, not a murderous monster. It seeks our friendship, not our flesh. Can we see past its physical nature and ascertain its truth? Will we even try? Snap judgments can result in horrific mistakes. Ooh. Okay. I love this. As you are walking by, back to the main primary entrance of the Celestial Bazaar, a large archway kind of leading into the main corridor, you see what look to be a number of, you see 2 or 3 roach goblins attacking a rat goblin. Now, a rat goblin is very much basically like, imagine if a rat could stand on its hind legs and had opposable thumbs. Think of it more of like a large...
They conquer the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you don't need to describe me in that much detail, sir. That's rude.
Twigg, what would you like to say to Gav?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see. I'm gonna... Yeah, let's actually... Yeah, I think that this is more of a combat thing. So yeah, you see a couple of roach goblins, these nasty things that you guys have seen before, that had these kind of like insectoid legs sticking out of their rib cage. They are attacking a rat goblin. Now, a rat goblin obviously is, imagine a rat standing on its hind legs, basically a little bit more humanoid, goblinoid, and basically a little bit more like, just think of them as like ratty, like monkey-like creatures. However, the interesting thing about this rat goblin that you see is they appear to be tearing at what you realize. Actually, make me a perception roll. I would like to tell me.
That sucked. That was a 1.
It was a 1. Yeah, they seem to be shredding some sort of like. They seem to be fighting over some sort of like bit of cloth. But you do hear the rat goblin saying, "Hey, let go, let go." What do you do?
They're like in front of me as I'm like coming up the street.
Yeah. There are these 2 roach goblins attacking the rat goblin.
Hey!
And
what's all this?
At which point the roach goblins look to you, these kind of goblinoid humanoid faces looking back at you. They're like these awful little children with sunken eyes look back at you, go, and continue to try to attack this creature.
I think at that point I'm just gonna be like, get off. And I'm just like shoving them just a little bit, just like I'm just seeing like this other creature in distress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like it seemed. Also, they seem to be tearing at something that the rat goblin is carrying, and something starts rolling out of this kind of like container.
Ooh, can I catch it?
Oh, absolutely. So you catch it, and I am going to tell you what it is momentarily. Let's see.
This break brought to you by
Folgers. Always
by
Folgers.
roach goblins.
Yeah, there is this little kind of amulet that seems to roll out and hit the ground in front of you. It seems to be fairly ornate in nature, but it kind of fell out of a tear in this bag that the rat goblin is carrying. What do you do?
I have it in my hand, and I've been a thief before. I get it. I hold it up. Is this what all the fuss is about?
The rat goblin cries out, "Hey, no, wait, that's mine!" And the roach goblins do not seem to care. They just are kind of ripping at the rat goblin. What do you do?
Interesting. Well, I'll wrap it around my hand for the time being, and then I'm gonna get like right in between them and kind of like I want to try to pick up the 2 roach goblins by their proverbial. I don't have scruff, but like I'm just kind of like, if they're horrid little urchin children, I'm just gonna want to be like, enough.
Okay, make me a physicality roll.
Yeah, that I can do.
I think to combine together, these guys are going to be 5.
All right. No sweat. That's a 6.
Okay. Yeah, you pick them up, and each of them are kind of like very frantically kind of clawing at the air in front of you. Exactly. They're just like, no! Except it's not audible words. There's just seems to be no sapience there if you're looking for it. What do? You have these guys, they're tiny, awful looking children with these legs coming out of their rib cages. What do?
Can someone explain to me what's happened here?
And the rat goblin just says, I don't know, they just, I think they thought I was dinner.
I'm gonna like turn one of the horrid children around and be like, are you just trying to eat this man? Or did he take something from you?
At which point I need you to make a dodge roll.
I love it.
Difficulty is 3 as this thing tries to claw out your eyes.
Well, he's welcome to try. Gotta get up a lot earlier, son. That's an 8.
All right, yeah. You just like reflexively like, oh no, these things are horrifying.
Seen them before.
Yeah.
I'm over the shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
After the after the foot carriage, nothing gets to me anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm unflappable.
I cannot be flapped.
It's all downhill from the goddamn foot carriage.
This thing reaches out for you, and I think reflexively, do you kind of like just throw it? What do you do?
No. I'm just gonna like hold it out further.
Yeah, the rat goblin is going to pick up its bag and just like start scurrying towards the entrance of the Celestial Bazaar. And just says, thank you so much. What do you do?
I still have his amulet.
Yeah, you do. I don't think that he noticed that it was gone.
He said, "Hey, that's mine."
Oh wait, that is right. He did say that. That is GM error number 101.
I'm just trying to keep you honest.
I appreciate that. So yeah,
I feel like we should. I feel like Marcy should get something for that.
Yeah.
Can I get one forward though, because I got big heist coming up.
Yeah, I think actually, the rat goblin looks back and like, I think trying to get away from these things that are attacking it, you realize the rat goblin's been kind of scratched at, and as it's kind of dusted itself off, you realize it's wearing a little suit with a fedora. It picks up its fedora, it puts it back on its head, and starts scurrying away.
He's got a little suit.
Yeah, he's got a little suit. He's got a rat goblin suit.
He's with a little rat face.
Yeah, a little rat face. He's got these big, giant black eyes.
Does he have little whiskers?
Yeah.
I love him.
And he just I think that he sees that the thing is in your hand as you're kind of making your way, as you're kind of like call out after him, and he just scurries through the archway. At which point, as soon as he scurries through the archway, those giant automatons, the 8-foot, 10-foot tall automatons that guard the Celestial Bazaar, they and come to attention, grab these large pole arms and point them towards the roach goblins. And
wait, I'm confused. Are they poaching? Are they pointing it at the rat goblin? But because I'm still holding the roach goblins.
No, they are pointing them at the roach goblins you are holding. The rat goblin is scurrying into the marketplace.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize I was that close to the entrance.
Yeah.
I'm just breaking up a fight. There's no need for this.
They just stand at attention as the things just kind of scrabble at you.
Can you just calm down?
And these things are awful, and I think I need you to make another dodge roll as one tries to bite.
I'm trying to befriend the roach goblins.
Are you trying to befriend? Really?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right.
I just want to understand what's happening here.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's a 7.
Okay, yeah. Again, this thing tries to like lurch and bite your arm, and you're just no, Mama no like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm very close to like banging their heads together.
Yeah. Do you want to try to do that in order to kind of knock
I just
some
want
sense
them to
into
be
them?
like, enough.
Okay. All right. Do it. Give me a physicality roll.
I'm not trying to. I'm trying to like lightly stun them.
Okay.
What's
again,
my venture?
5. 5 is your challenge.
Yeah. No. That's an 8.
Awesome. And each of them kind of like, I think each of them, after feeling their skulls connect, just kind of goes a little limp, but not out of unconsciousness. They just kind of like look up, reproachfully at you.
Was this? Did you want this?
As you kind of, as one of them kind of like looks up at you, it doesn't seem to comprehend. It does kind of tentatively reach out towards the amulet.
I unwrap it from my wrist and I like hold it out closer.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to set you both down. I'll give this to you. There's a lot of hand gestures. Like, hey, look at me with your eyes. Yes. This. I'm setting you down. You can have this. Did that one take it from you both?
There's no comprehension.
Jesus Christ.
You are talking to cockroaches, essentially.
Why not? I mean, I'm trying to communicate with them because I think if I could communicate with actual roaches, I'd have less problems here in Brooklyn. I set them both down, and I'm like holding out the amulet.
And one of them kind of scrabbles and then just snatches the amulet from you and immediately tries to bite down into the amulet.
Whatever you want. Godspeed.
Yeah, these sharpened teeth And literally, as you give them that, as you set them down, the automatons follow them with their pole arms until they go down a side alley carrying the amulet with them. And yeah.
All in a day's work.
So you kind of stopped this roach goblin attack, and you make your way through the Celestial Bazaar. And you find yourself back at Luster's Firearms and Sundries. And there is, as you open the door, another kind of like warm greeting from this mustachioed vendor. Oh, okay. You're back. I was hoping you'd show up today.
What, did you think I wouldn't come back for my commission?
Oh, of course. I expected it. I was just getting antsy. I think I did something real nice here. And he reaches under the counter and pulls out this suit.
God, I'm so ready. Lay it on me.
This suit, he looks at it and he says, so, it's gonna give you a little bit of additional protection as you make your way around, but I think I really outdid myself. I gave you a bit of a neat little feature. And what I am going to mechanically describe to you is what he relates to you via what am I thinking of? Anecdote. Which is, this is a Lacunae suit. It has 1 armor. It grants 2 bene to movement. And as you are lightly obscured, depending on the scene chosen for the Lacunae suit, you essentially make the choice when you intend to use it. And its depletion is 0 and 0. So if you roll 0 twice, its object is depleted forever. But if you roll 0 once, it's depleted for the scene. However, its color is red as it's continually changing outside of the consciousness of the user. However, you may once per day, I'll say actually probably, once per day, we'll workshop this. Once per day, you may choose to escape through the scene within the Lacunae suit.
Hell yeah.
However, if you do that, you must make a new depletion roll of a range of 0 to 2 for each die. And if you roll 0 to 2 on both dice, it's depleted forever. And
Gotcha.
yeah, at which point he says, well, I think it's fair to request a bit of a handsome sum for this. I'm looking at 6 gem orbs for parts and labor.
Whew. I don't think I have all of that. And hence the bank robbery.
So here's the thing. You would have it if you took the money from
I did.
yeah, so that's 600 crystal orbs.
Wait, what? It is?
Yeah, that's 6
Oh.
gem orbs. It's 100 currency exchange.
Math, my favorite thing. Yeah, I'll pay.
Yeah, so you pay 600 crystal orbs, and he very gingerly folds up this suit. And he says, just be careful. Don't want to give anybody too much of a hint of what you intend for something like this. Because I will say there is also a vex for interaction on this, as you take on the appearance of a Lacunae when you wear the suit. And if you run it, especially if you run into another Lacunae, it's going to be very strange. And he says,
Nice.
yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of this one. I think this is some pretty good work.
Well, I may have some other jobs in future.
Hey, as long as the orbs are crystal, I'm happy to work.
That's what I like to hear. I'll be in touch. But thank you for this.
My pleasure, Mazikeen. And he takes the blue feather you gave him and taps it against his, here.
I like give him a little salute and I take my package and I leave.
Excellent. So, having accomplished this, I am going to cut from here, and we are going to check in on our second apostate. Twigg, you are resting fitfully in one of the observation beds of Merriweather Hospital in Rive River. It has been a fairly quick transition for you going through this kind of hospital setting, working with Yi-Mon. Among the things that Yi-Mon told you was that she would keep you for observation, that she would use whatever medical techniques were at her disposal to ascertain the origin of your wound, as well as where your heart might have gone to, so that you may live while at the same time having no heart. And she would come back to you with whatever information she could ascertain from her clinical methods. Now, I'm assuming that this was all in line with everything you'd accept. Would you have objected? What would you have done?
I think Twigg wants to know what affects not having one's heart, like besides the obvious the fact that they're surviving. They want to know what that means, really, like from magically or medically or metaphysically.
Okay, so I'm going to pull a card for Yi-Mon, and we're going to see how she does. We're going to pull several over the course of your observation, because I believe you're only being observed for 2 days. So I'll pull 2 cards. The first one is the Blind Guardian. Its color is silver. It strengthens silver, it weakens gold. Its family is vision, swans, blades, and water. Its meanings are safety, impartiality, serenity, blindness, and challenges. So the Blind Guardian watches over us like a protector. That's probably our door it guards because of its blindness. It confronts all intruders equally, from the lowest vermin to the most powerful god, from the purest angel to the vilest demon. Its blindness also confers a calmness. You'll never see the Guardian worry or fret, nor will you see it eager or anticipatory. To those that seek what it guards, it is a difficult challenge. You cannot brime or charm this Guardian, and despite its blindness, or because of it, is very difficult to fool or deceive. So, this is the first night that Yi-Mon is able to observe you. So, the very first thing she says is, "Now there is a wide array of magic that can confer protection upon anybody who wishes to wield it, such that I have heard of places where people take pieces of themselves and put them out for safekeeping. It is my understanding that there are tales in shadow of people who do similar things, who are able to separate a piece of themselves so that there is something to remain if they are extinguished. This strikes me as a possibility, but not a certainty. It would take a very powerful guardian indeed to safeguard a piece of someone from a very, very, let's say, powerful entity that would want to know its location." And there's something about what she says to you that strikes you, but make me an intellect roll.
Ooh. I will use a Bene.
Excellent. Just tell me how you do.
It's a 7 + 1.
Excellent. Okay, on an 8, the thing that really strikes you about what she tells you is guardian. There's something about that word, guardian. and it's kind of like it's like something that's just at the tip of your brain and you're trying to remember it. And she is, I think that some of this, the clinical talk kind of starts moving past you as you kind of fixate on that word. Before we kind of speed through this, are there any other questions that you have for her?
Not especially. Nothing comes to Twigg's mind. I think they just want answers, but they don't have enough information to really ask too many questions.
Yeah, and I think that exactly. A lot of this you do not have a scope of reference for, as that one bird that flew into your chest kind of had come out. The rest of her team of birds is essentially performing a full diagnostic workup on you. One bird kind of alights on a shoulder, hops to your ear, and then kind of like pokes around in it a little bit, and then kind of absconds off. One of them is like kind of you feel a peck on your knee, and you realize it's testing your reflexes. There's one bird that hops on your nose and just like it traces its beak from one eye to the other to see how well you follow it. And it also tests your eye dilation. There's a very formal process to this, but it's all strange as get out. So there's not a lot of like scope that you have for this, and it's all kind of like very overwhelming. And at which point, I think after a barrage of tests, the birds alight back onto the spoke wheel of the angel behind her back, and she has a number of them start whispering into her ears, almost kind of like chirping. And you can't make out the bird song, but you do hear her say, "Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I'm glad we ruled all that out." And she looks back to you, says, "I would like you, Twigg, to go ahead and take some time, rest, find yourself in a more meditative state for sleep. This place has curative properties while I am here. Perhaps, with a new barrage of tests tomorrow, we can ascertain the location of your heart."
Here?
"Yes, if you would. In the hospital, we have a bed made out for you."
Guess that can be amenable.
Yeah. At which point she bows, and several attending physicians and nurses like flank and move past her, and one of whom leads you to your quarters. And it's there that we rejoin you in this fitful sleep, as that word circles through your mind. Guardian. 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 And in your dreams, you are surrounded by trees more massive than you ever could remember. They are the size of skyscrapers. And you travel over the tops of these trees. Your perspective. And it drags down through a thick underbrush, miles wide, miles high. And you continue going down, where you find a massive, thriving amount of things. Soil covered in rich, fertile underbrush and growth and shrubbery. Flowers of every make, site, and genus and species. Millions of pollinating insects go flitting about from bud to bud. There are large quadrupedal mammals that seem to feed on even larger ones as part of a pack. And then you see large mammals picking up, and among these, picking up other kind of almost like food chain style, cycle of life, attacking one another. It's scenes spanning out. It's like Tree of Life. It's like one of those like shallow depth of field videos that you just kind of see all of the detail this close to your face. And as you travel down, you also reach a point that seems to be large winding passages through the soil, which you realize are just massive labyrinthine rootworks. There are these amazing kind of every species of root, every species of tree, they all kind of seem to hollow out this almost like anthill style set of passages. And you are exploring this area in all of its gritty detail, and it's both kind of discombobulating and terrifying and wondrous, all at the same time, simultaneously. And there is a moment where you are looking down into your own hands, and in your hands is a thudding human heart. And over your hands are a pair of long, thin-fingered hands that are covered in bark. And as these hands close over yours, there is a bit of green light that seems to issue from the cracks between the fingers. And whoever's this belongs to, their hands gently take the heart from you, leaving your own hands empty. And as you stare up into the face of this person you've gifted to your heart, I need you to make a intellect roll.
Bene or sortilege?
Bene, sortilege, hidden knowledge, whatever you want to use.
Can I use Bene and hidden knowledge?
Absolutely.
I have so much hidden knowledge. I'm a fount of bullshit. That's an 8 plus a 1 plus a hidden knowledge.
Okay. So, as you look up into this person's face, you are expecting to see a kind of a human face looking back at you, and it is human-like. There's something very familiar about it, and with that 10, you realize that that face is not quite, but very similar to Quercus's. In fact, Quercus's face is very dissimilar in that her own hair is like that of a weeping willow, and this one, her hair is much more upright, like the leaves of a cedar tree, as they kind of spike up into a little bit of a mohawk. And you just hear a voice say, in that same scream yell that you heard the night you went back to the actuality, Twigg! And you wake up. Oh, and guys, we've hit 6 p.m. I think it's there. We'll take our 10-minute break. So guys, just stick around, rejoin us in 10 minutes, grab a drink, hit the restroom, whatever you need to do. We will be back shortly. Hey everybody, and welcome back to The Hole in the World, an actual play of the Invisible Sun RPG by Monty Cook Games. As always, I am your Game Master, Zach, otherwise known as Great Zamino. I am once again joined by my lovely cast members, Bill, Marcy, Marissa, and Hopper, and we are going to get back right into the action, not going to make you wait, because it's too good of a story, right? Anyhow, so we're going to pick up where we left Kyrrie. A lot's been transpiring, but you guys are still kind of reconvening at the graduation ceremony for Kenroy. And Kyrrie, actually, let's do that one. So Kyrrie, you are kind of still kind of like making heads or tails of everything, but you see those two major figures, one of whom, Kenroy, and the other fellow, the one they called Rajathamos, they seem to leave out into a parlor area out where is kind of like almost like a small kind of game room like slash study. And that is, I think, right when you see this happen, your attention kind of turns a little bit and you see Maurice embracing that fellow that you met before, Ashwin, and kind of engaging in kind of, what looks to be kind of congenial catch-up conversation. But right as you kind of do that, Mac kind of tugs on your sleeve and says, or kind of like taps you and says, I thought you were interested in the Spiders game. I think they're going to go in and play that if you want to take a look.
Yes, it's been quite a while since I've seen a game played, and to be honest, Maurice has tried to get me to play it more times than one, so it would be nice to be able to surprise him. Why don't we... You haven't seen it either, Mac, have you?
No, they keep on saying I'm going to have to learn if I'm going to want to be a journeyman or what have you, but I'm really excited. I like games. I always liked playing checkers back home.
I'd say it's a little different than checkers, but you're not far off.
I was going to say, I'm hoping not by far, because I really like checkers. I'm pretty good at it. And I think kind of animatedly, he begins kind of moving with you towards the parlor. And what sight greets you as you enter the parlor is you remember being in King Nine's study. And it was just this massive extra-dimensional space of books. And literally kind of an almost kind of picturesque natural scene in which bookshelves were kind of magically placed throughout, along with like naturalistic looking bodies of water. It was very much kind of a display of the raw power and wealth that King Nine had access to. However, in this study, it's very much more picturesque in a much more approachable manner. It's a rustic home. It's this ashram that at the same time has just a very approachable library. There are several volumes of which kind of are very colorfully labeled. And you recognize that some of these are very much texts that Vances might have access to, but at the same time, scattered throughout, there are what appear to be these small journal-like books on the shelves of kind of weaving, almost like kind of like, they're very much like journals, but they are kind of exploring concepts of the weave and of threading together aggregates. But right in the center of this room, you see Rajathamos, this fellow that is kind of setting up with Kenroy these wooden board pieces on what looks to be kind of an octagonal board that at which point they are kind of discussing things, at which point says, you hear Kenroy say, so standard rules. And I think that the taller figure, Rajathamos, kind of considers it for a moment, says, but one recall. 4 boards instead of 3. At which point Kenroy says, well, it is your board. And so you see 4 boards get stuck in the air, completely immovable, and they begin kind of attaching these long linen threads that travel on the tangents of each side of the board. At which point they says, Rajathmos says, would you like the widow first? And Kenroy says, but of course. And Kenroy picks out a small black piece of rosewood with 8 small red stripes running down and a very large red hourglass painted on the back of these kind of wooden figures. And you realize that he has picked the Black Widow piece, which is usually the more offensive style of play. And they begin playing. It's a little bit hard to follow at first, but why don't you go ahead and make an intellect roll for me?
Will do. And that's an 8 + 1.
Awesome. Okay, so on a 9, you're watching this and you're very much kind of getting the gist of the game. Mac is kind of watching. You realize that Mac's eyes are getting larger the more complicated the rules get. But the interesting thing is that you are watching this and you are taking a look at the pieces as they move. And what is happening is as the pieces move to different higher levels of the board, there is a tendency to basically kind of graduate the pieces the same way you would graduate a pawn in chess. And you can graduate what are called these little spiders, which are these actual small little hunks of figurative wood with these set kind of painting patterns on them. You can kind of graduate them into other kind of pieces that are worth additional spiders to that one. Or you can kind of convert them into other more powerful spiders that are essentially kind of traveling all around the board in configurations to try and basically have stratagems that kind of corner your other adversaries' pieces. At the same time, there are a number of what look to be kind of these glowing kind of amethyst tiles surrounding the board. And all of these tiles are within these kind of hexagonal or octagonal shapes to kind of match the shape of the board. And these tiles, you realize, are tied to Weaver aggregates. And whenever one of the players lands on one, there are some that are random that basically generate a Weaver aggregate that is not predetermined, and there are predetermined aggregate tiles. So one of the things that you notice is that when one player, Kyrrie, actually lands and places his figure on a challenge tile, the entire board, like on that one board, it seems to have all of the tiles grow thorns around it, at which point all of the enemy's tiles seem to move at a much slower pace as Rajathmos tries to move them. But with a 9, you also gather one additional thing, which is that Rajathmos is a very good player. And you are starting to realize that you are starting to notice a pattern, almost like formulae in the way he is moving his pieces. And you can actually anticipate a ambush that Rajathmos is setting for Kyrrie. What do you do?
Ooh. I think this realization probably strikes Kyrrie that she's kind of anticipated this move in the game that hasn't happened yet for a game that she's not really familiar with. Question, does she know of anyone, just based on her reading or like history, lore, etc., that has been a proficient Spiders game player who is not a Weaver?
Who is not a Weaver? Make me a intellect roll.
That's a 7 plus 1.
Okay. So on an 8, I would say, yeah, you know that there are a couple of Vances that have basically beaten some 5th degree Weavers. However, the one person that you understand is probably the ultimate player of the game, according to lore documented by several Vances, is that the best players of the game are beings called Truespiders. And there has never, ever been kind of an explanation in your knowledge of what a Truespider is. You just know that they are considered masters of the Spiders game for obvious reasons.
I think Kyrie's going to lean over and kind of like whisper to Mac, watch what Rajathmos is doing.
And basically Mac's just like, I've been trying to find out after the first 3 moves. I'm real lost. But he says, I'll try. And as you watch, Rajathmos springs the trap. And one of the things that he does is he notices that you notice that one of his pieces actually climbs to the top board, stops in the middle of the linen rope, and then falls and pounces essentially on another piece, basically taking it. But at the same time he does that, he actually falls onto a tile that is the one that Kyrrie tripped to make everything that much more brambled and difficult for Rajothmos to do. So basically, he flips the effect. So now that all of Kenroy's pieces are the ones that have trouble moving through the board. So yeah, and Mac is just like, oh wow, it's just he's like, you're right, that was really wow. Okay, whew. Note to self: this is not checkers.
Kyrrie looks kind of self-satisfied. Well, Maurice is quite a good player from what I've heard, so you should have a good teacher.
Absolutely. I think that would be great. Well, are you a weaver too? Because, what was it? You're dressed a lot more fancy than the rest of them.
No, I'm not a weaver, but certainly if I'd known that this would be an event of this caliber, I wouldn't have dressed like this at all. I would have dressed even more formally. I'm a Vance. Have you met a Vance before?
I heard something about them. Folks, Marlin used to call them book mages.
Yes, that's us.
Oh, so what, you get the power from the books, or how does that work?
Well, we commune with spells. We effectively ask their permission and consent, and then clothe ourselves in them to use them. We treat magic as though it were a living entity.
So wait, when you're clothing yourself in the spell, does that mean that you're like, is that the reason you wanted to get all dressed up all fancy? You wanted to wear a few extra spells?
It's funny that you put it that way. Not generally a correlation, but I suppose one could think of it that way, yes.
All right, well, I guess that means that makes sense why you'd be extra fancy. But anyhow, I don't know. I never was really much for books. I just like to, I don't know. I always had a predilection to feel things out, and got me into trouble, but I feel like I got to the right place. Oh, hey, he's moving again. And at which point you see Rajothmos's widow advances on one of Kenroy's last pieces. And Kenroy smiles and nods and knocks down his own piece. As you realize that Rajothmos, through manipulation and through kind of traversing the board, created his own widow to attack Kenroy's.
Wow. Like I said, I've never seen this. I've not seen this game played very much, but that seems like a very strange and advanced move, certainly.
Well, Mr. Kenroy says that some games, they last for years. I think this might have been a real simple one. I think you add rules if they're real, like if you really want to play a long game. I heard there's pieces more than spiders.
Really?
I heard there's something called like ant players. I don't know what that means.
Kyrrie's gonna kind of cast her eyes around the room in the library and see if she can spot any titles related to the Spiders game, either about strategy or history.
Oh, easily enough. There are probably there's a small shelf that one of which is adorned with a piece from the Spiders game that you can tell, almost kind of like a little graphical item there, and you pick it up, and it's just kind of like a children's overview to the Spiders game.
I think she's gonna have a look at it and then hand it to Mac and say, if you want to impress your teacher, you might read this and then come to your first game with him armed with that knowledge.
Well, I appreciate that. This is fantastic. Thank you, Miss Kyrrie.
You're very welcome, Mac.
And he, kind of like nods and says, "Well, I better go check on. I better check on Mr. Webb real quick. I'll see you momentarily." And Maurice, you have been pleasantly surprised by Ashwin showing up. Ashwin seems to be in much better spirits, but at the same time, a lot more color has returned to their face, and their eye, that kind of milky white, is really gone, and there's actually more of a sparkle there than there was kind of this less of a cataract, more of a little bit of glint of light. You've been kind of try to make, I imagine, a little bit of awkward conversation, but Ashwin's just kind of trying to take everything in as a maker, among weavers.
Maurice grabs off of a tray two what look like little like mouthpieces and explains that they are connected via weaving magic to that giant hookah hanging from the center of the room like a light piece, and says, "You really ought to try this. It'll make you a lot more relaxed."
And they reach out tentatively with one hand and yeah, I feel really relaxed. And but very good-naturedly enough, Ashwin is kind of enjoying everything, and that's when I think Mac kind of comes up to you, kind of kneading his hands together. Mr. Maurice, I was just talking to Kyrrie. She thought maybe you might want to come see the game. I was thinking maybe you'd like to come see the game too.
Oh yeah, has it started?
Absolutely, yeah. The Mr. Rajathmos just won the first game, and then the Kyrrie is setting up for the second one.
Ashwin, after you.
And Ashwin kind of still kind of a little bit reeling from the hookah, moves with you towards the study.
Maurice sidles up next to Kyrrie and takes a long drag and blows out a plume of smoke and says, I missed the first one? Damn it.
At which point Mac is just like, well, it went awful quick. It seems like they're using some like simple rules. I don't know. It seems like just a friendly game. And there is something that you notice after the game gets set up, which is that Rajathmos is basically drumming his spindly fingers on his leg as he watches Kyrrie set his own pieces in order, and it reminds you a lot of when King 9 played you, how intently he's watching his opponent.
And Maurice, he kind of sits there and kind of taps the mouthpiece to the side of his face and leans over to Kyrrie and says, I'd like to play a friendly game. The last one I played was with your boss.
With my boss?
King 9. He invited me to a midnight game. Surely you saw the board set up in the middle of the library.
Well, yes. I must admit, I didn't know he played. He's not a weaver.
He's extremely good. It unnerved me.
It doesn't surprise me, to be honest. He's a being of many talents, shall we say.
There's something about that man. He moves like King 9 did in the game. Just the way his bearing. It's unsettling, frankly.
Quiet contemplation of the game is typically customary, you realize. As Rajathmos says this while he's looking directly at Kyrrie. And Kyrrie, there's a little bit of a wry smirk on his face as his eyes travel over to you.
Maurice goes beet red.
At which point, Kyrrie looks at Rajathmos and says, well, Master, you'll have to pardon my student. He's been away from my tutelage for some time. He may be disused to some of the higher echelons of play. And at which point, and he's British, so I'll work on that. And Rajathmos looks to you, and you realize he's kind of looking you up and down. Do you play?
Only as much as the next Weaver. I was just saying that I got my ass kicked the last time I played.
With King 9?
Did I say that loudly?
And Kyrrie kind of leans back in his chair a little bit, and he says, why don't I set up a new game?
Kyrrie's gonna stand up. She's gonna say, "Is that a challenge that I hear?"
Oh, Kyrrie, no.
At which point, Kenroy looks to you and there's again that curling mustache. It spirals up on one side, and he finishes setting up, and he says, and he kind of nods to Rajathmos, and Rajathmos says, "No challenge, just a friendly game among contemporaries."
Really? Well, I'd say that the answer is yes. If you are indeed asking Maurice to play. Isn't that right, Maurice?
I don't know how this is about me right now.
Well, surely you must have understood the subtext.
I'm sorry for talking during the game. Please continue.
Fight.
Yeah. At which point, Rajathmos looks at Kenroy, having stood up from the seat. He points to the chair and he says, "No, the seat is yours. Sit. Play a game."
Unless you want me to play and embarrass myself.
No,
I'm afraid that's going to happen no matter what. And Maurice painfully, slowly creeps over to the seat and sits down as if it were made of needles, and it's just pouring sweat. What has he gotten himself into?
And he holds out two pieces to you. And he says, "It's typical we choose either the Black Widow or the Orb Weaver. Which do you take?"
Maurice chooses the Orb Weaver.
And he says, "Then the Widow is mine." And he begins placing and setting up into the offensive position. And he begins...
Maurice steals a look at Kenroy, like...
Yeah, and Kenroy gives you a look back like, "What do you expect? You put yourself in this mess." And Rajathmos is beginning to move, and he says, "We'll move at your pace. So, when was the last time you played King 9? And he is beginning to move.
And Maurice takes a respectable amount of time, considering his opening move, and remembers his game with King 9, and remembers the inconsistency of his strategy, and how once he turned from defense to offense, his plan fell apart. And so takes the opening moves of a very formidable defense.
Mm-hmm. At which point, so you begin kind of armoring up, essentially. There is a aggregate tile. Do you respond to him?
No. Maurice keeps his head down, studies the board.
And he he's kind of like glancing and says, "Oh, the quiet type then. I remember the first time I beat King 9. He really didn't know what he was getting himself into." And he sets a piece up, and there's a aggregate tile that he sees. And he, that tile, taking a look at it, is the tower. And you realize something as you're looking at it. I want you to make an intellect roll as you're playing Rajathmos.
Sure. I'll spend some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'll spend 2.
Okay. Go ahead and give me a roll. What you got?
That is a 1 on the die. So we'll call that a 3, unless I have anything that helps me whatsoever with this. Nope.
And again, basically, what ends up happening is there's something odd that you notice with that 3, is that Rajathmos bypasses the aggregate tile. When you realize that the aggregate tile is the tower, but he seems to move past it and begins sending up and climbing the linen rope to the next board. Yeah, sees a lot of bluster, a lot of flame, not a lot of strategy I found. What did you find when you were playing him?
Maurice is quiet for a moment, and moves to take the tower aggregate tile.
Okay.
And says, and finally looks up at Rajapamus and says, I learned he must have had a good teacher.
I think that I was. I do kind of regret that. And as you look at him, those lines up and down his forehead, two of them you realize as they open are eyes. And then
I'm gonna roll to see if Maurice keeps this cool. He does.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and he's looking at you intently now, 4 eyes staring at you. 4, very kind of like warm, congenial chocolate brown eyes. And he says, do I regret playing him? Yes, but at the same time, I had to have the experience. I had to play the king himself.
Maurice looks around. This is a safe place for him, but the idea of tossing around this name so casually is kind of bugging him out. And he wants to look around and see who is paying attention to this game, who is really listening to this conversation.
You realize with some kind of trepidation that the only people that are in the room, Kenroy has left. The only people in the room are you, Rajathamos, Mac, and Kyrrie. And as that piece lands on the tower, it graduates into another spider. This one, a wolf spider.
Maurice attempts to code switch and speak the language of spiders.
Okay. What do you say? Yeah.
And says, so King Nine learned from you. What did you learn in return? And moves to make another defensive lattice position.
And as you do that, the Widow again climbs to the top of the next board. And he says, the thing I learned is that many Vizsla believe that they are entitled to the world. And he says it in the spider's whisper back to you. Excuse me, the accent should be, I've found that many believe that Vizsla own the world. Crocky.
Maurice sits back and kind of reorients himself to the situation and finds the mouthpiece to the hookah again and makes eye contact with Rajathamos as he takes a deep inhale. And looks at the board kind of anew. And looks at the widow and its attacking position and looks at his own defenses. Can I get some sort of insight roll as to how effective my defense is against this movement?
Absolutely. Give me an intellect roll.
Okay, I'm going to spend 2 more. That's a 7 all day.
Okay. So 7 plus the bonus, or?
No, just 5 plus the bonus.
Okay. So on a 7, you realize the something that you got when he bypassed that tile is he was setting it up for you. Is he was letting you graduate the wolf spider. The other thing that you notice is that his offensive pattern is very good to kind of jump from whichever board down to the next board. It does not serve him if the piece is directly under the widow. or is directly under the widow on the in the center of the next board. So if you have, let's say, a wolf spider, which is able to move a lot of more spaces than a widow, you could ostensibly mount a defense from the center of the board and then move quickly around to take another piece.
Yeah, Maurice is going to keep this tack and outright ask, "Why did you let me take the tower?" And moves his next piece.
Well, Visley are a known quantity. To some extent. Weavers, however, you each develop your own styles over time. Excuse me, I should be doing all this in Australian. I understand that some of you have different predilections. As weavers, your tendency to find more aggregates, find different concepts that empower you, and I'm interested to see what it is exactly that floats your boat, so to speak. What kind of weaver are you? And what do you bring to this cell is what I'm trying to determine.
Maurice further reinforces this defensive wall. It's, I think, all but impenetrable now, but hopelessly leading to either a very long game or a very quick draw. And Maurice looks up at this creature and says, in the spider's whisper, "I don't know what kind of weaver I am yet, but I have to know, what is this game to you? Is it abstraction? Is it distraction? Or is this it? You suss out the nature of the weaver that you play?"
And he looks at you, and there's a smile on his face. And he just says, "We're just telling stories, mate." And you realize, as you look at him when he says telling stories, there's something about Rajathmos that is very familiar to you. As a fiction writer, you know the patron saint of stories, Anansi, the spider. And you wonder just how much of it, how much in shadow Anansi is based on something like Rajathmos.
And Maurice switches back into the common tongue of Visley and is clearly not playing a strategy anymore, is exercising some sort of academic liberty, playing moves that would never be played in a really competitive game, but creating scenarios that are so unlikely as to be novel and interesting, and begins shooting the shit and telling a series of stories and using his forte ability to entertain. And it reminds him of sitting in a Lower East Side bar past closing time, playing quarters, and getting shit-faced with a bunch of artists and ne'er-do-wells and drunks. And he includes Mac and Kyrrie in this kind of sense of camaraderie, and pointing out the board and talking about the moves. And for the next half hour, it's not really so much a game as a hangout.
Yeah, at some point, sometimes you just ignore the board, as Rajathmos is just jovially listening with a smile on his face, talking to you, and making kind of like asides and observations about like the health and the greatness of the cell and being a part of this process, and you're just two people having a game being watched by your friends as the scene kind of goes dark on this moment. And at the end of it, as I think at some point Rajathmos just nods to you and just kind of topples his Black Widow to signify that he would like to end the game. He starts kind of putting everything away for Kenroy. And he looks at you and he says, now you are a weaver that I will be watching with great interest. I'd love to see the stories that you tell one day.
If I were to seek you out, where might I find you?
I'm always here. Or spinning a web someplace. And he winks, with one eye, two of them having closed.
I know the Whisper Network is always awake.
Fancy that. And he begins kind of good-naturedly looking to Kenroy, who is, looking a little bit ready to go to bed. Kenroy is kind of in his late 40s, early 50s. He's, or I'd say kind of late 50s. He's ready to call it a night. And, Kyrrie, as you are kind of watching this game wind down and you are kind of having this discussion with Rajathmos, Mac is completely, absolutely kind of taking all of this in, and you realize that he kind of feels like a guppy in the middle of a big pond. But at the same time, he's trying to be as good-natured about it as possible and as congenial. There's something about this. There's something about this kind of like observation that you saw Rajathmos doing of Kenroy and then next doing to Maurice, that you realize that there's something familiar about it. For whatever reason, it makes you think of that page that you took out of the grimoire.
Like the web element.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's something about it's less the web, more the watchfulness. So with that, everybody kind of bows and kind of ends the night. Of course, Maurice, you are welcome to stay at the ashram as you have been doing. But at the same time, Kenroy offers to Kyrrie, if you'd like, you don't have to go leave. If you'd like to find a vacant room here, there's plenty.
Well, that's very kind. It is getting quite late. I'd be delighted to stay the night.
Absolutely, please. Make yourself at home. And, yeah.
Maurice, with his eyes kind of half lids from the hookah, says to Kyrrie, as he walks her to the open room, says, dream study tonight?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, as you are winding down for the night, you again find yourselves, after some bit of time, I think with both of you, the kind of like the alcohol, the hookah, between that and the food that was on offer, it's fairly easy to get a good night's rest. And at some moment, you find yourselves in that familiar dream study. What do you guys do with your time there?
Kyrrie rushes up to Maurice, I think, first of all, and goes, "What was that? That was fascinating. What was happening?"
Look, definitely a Truespider. He definitely talking 9. I need to talk to you about something else, though.
What?
You can see the kind of, if this is their dorm room, there's like, empties all over and ash all over everything, betraying Maurice's state of mind, and says, and he pulls out of his pocket this handkerchief that Kyrrie saw on Duncan, and hands it over to her, and it doesn't feel like a handkerchief at all. In fact, it feels like a folio. It feels like a book. And Maurice leans forward and says, Basil gave me the war report. It's on Duncan. I hit it.
Oh shit!
The war report? The document that we've been looking for this entire time, that we've staked our lives on multiple times, that war report?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
How long have you had it?
He gave it to me in the hospital.
What? The hospital? And how long ago was that?
A couple days ago.
What? And I've been here this whole time watching chess while you've hid the war report around Duncan's neck?
It's pretty good, right? Look, he made me promise that we all look at it together.
Does anyone else know about this?
Gav knows?
Gav knows. Gav, I've spent weeks with Gav, and Gav said nothing.
Sorry?
Am I the last to know? A document that the entire world has been looking for eons?
I didn't want to open it without you.
Oh, well, that's very lovely, but
I sent
so you're just
I sent Twigg a note. I don't know if Twigg knows, but look, we still have the magic, right? The shadow magic?
Yeah.
For the rest of this month. They can't find us. I'm gonna be here for a couple weeks at least, and I'm gonna take care of you. It's gonna be fine.
So you want me to go and tell Twigg? Or you want Twigg to come to you?
Yes?
Well, if all of us must be together, certainly Gav has no problem coming here.
Yeah, but Gav has a big problem with Twigg. You were there, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
I tried to plant something in Gav, and I sent Twigg something, but I don't know if it worked. And look, I know you did a lot to, I don't know, prepare something to do what Basil wanted, and he gave it to me. And we need to get both of them back together. We need to get us back together to read it.
Speaking of Basil, does he still want us to bring his friends back out of the book? The book that was never written? The book that never was?
Probably. I think there's a better way to handle it. I think I can write a new story. I think never mind.
No, go on. Write a new story.
I don't think Basil belongs here. I think what he feels to those people trapped in the story, I think that suffering is a product of him being here. Whoever I was that brought him here, I'm not that person anymore, and the more I see of him here, the more I think it's a mistake.
But what about the Blue Warden? She wants us to
Bring him back
yeah.
to the blue. He can't be here anymore.
Is that what he wants, Maurice? Are we acting against his will?
He glances at the typewriter and says, I can make it be what he wants.
You've said it yourself. Basil has evolved past something that's just been written on a page. He has a consciousness.
Why does Mara want him back?
That's a good question. And maybe one we should spend more effort into finding out, rather than just doing what was asked of us.
You're gonna keep doing what was asked of you? What King Nine asked of you?
I do what King Nine asks when it suits me. He knows that.
That scares the hell out of me, Kyrrie.
It's a dangerous game, but for now is one both of us play. Like a spider's game. There isn't a winner and a loser yet. Just a stalemate.
Well, you and Maurice kind of stumbles out of his chair a little bit and kind of falls into you a little bit and then holds you at arm's length and says, will you just be careful?
Always.
I'm gonna pass out.
I think Kyrrie is going to pat your tentacle shoulder and go, you do that, Architeuthus Webinus.
And Maurice takes the handkerchief and kind of pats his face with it and shoves it in his pocket. Says, you find Twigg?
I can do it.
Thanks. And
No
Maurice,
guarantee he'll listen to me, or they'll listen to me, but, well, if maybe there's anyone they'll listen to, perhaps I have the best shot.
thank you. And Maurice kind of disapparates from the room.
Yeah. Maurice disapparates. Kyrrie, do you do anything else in the dream study?
I imagine the war report disapparates with Maurice as well.
I'm afraid so.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
I think she'll probably spend the rest of her dream study reading. And one of the things that I think she reads is any books or material she was able to get her hands on from the Weaver's Library about the Spiders game.
Absolutely. I would like you to go ahead and make me a intellect roll as you go ahead and consult these texts.
That is an 8 plus 1. 9.
Okay. So on a 9, you are beginning to read through a lot of these texts, and one of them is very interesting. It's notes on a very interesting opponent that they've faced, which is essentially, and you realize with some kind of familiarity as you are reading through the text, you realize that the person is talking about having played the game with a Truespider. Not necessarily Rajathamos, but a Truespider opponent. And the thing that stands out to you is how basically a Truespider lives the game. More often than not, very much the adversaries of a Truespider are treated very much like prey. So basically, the game is kind of an extension of their web. It is also believed that it may be apocryphal, but it is believed that the Spiders game was created by Truespiders as a way to ascertain the strengths of their rivals and to suss out, ulterior motivations over the course of play. So there's a lot of different purposes that the game has. It's almost kind of like a social ritual, or as a rite of passage for certainly young Truespiders and young Weavers. It also serves a very kind of diplomatic purpose, as well as kind of a almost an offensive and kind of information gathering purpose, set within a friendly environment. And so Truespiders that sit down together, it's only kind of speculated by this Weaver what that pertains to. There is one thing though, is as the kind of text is talking about what the Truespider sees in their opponents, you realize there's something about that page that's very familiar that you pulled out of the book. Now, some of the symbols you could not read. You're still kind of working on them. But you realize there was something that was very familiar that you couldn't get your grasp on, but you recognize a beta spell. And this time, with absolute clarity provided to you by kind of this study, you realize exactly what it is. So first off, tick your clock 3 ticks as you learn the following beta spell, as soon as I can find it. Aothrasil's Visions of the Nemesis. Level 5, 1 die. I get a vision of what my enemy is up to at this exact moment. The vision lasts for about a minute, and I don't have control of the angle of viewing, nor can I alter it. I get only visual information, not sound or smell. Usually, I can specify at the time of casting who my enemy is. Sometimes, however, I'll get an unexpected vision, often of an enemy I didn't know I had, or of someone I didn't know was my enemy. Its color is indigo.
Love it.
Yeah.
Kyrrie is quite excited because, like, when things click into place for her, it's like eureka, revelation, and she loves new magic. So she is very excited to receive this.
And there's something interesting that this makes you think of. Why was it in Zaleska's grimoire? Because you've heard of this spell. You haven't had the time to study it. You haven't had the time to learn the formulae and kind of try to clothe yourself in the spell. Why did Zaleska care about it? That's a question you still can't answer.
And it sounds like it might be a question for her grimoire. But, of course, that doesn't work in a dream, so Kyrrie will shelve that. And for the moment, I think her thoughts are circling around King Nine, and how this Truespider, this Rajathamos, taught King Nine, and she's seen firsthand how Weaver mentors pass the game down to their mentees, and it occurs to her, all while she's thinking about having received this kind of Visions of the Nemesis spell, that if King Nine was taught to play the spider's game by a Truespider, then just maybe King Nine lives his game too.
It's an interesting theory that we will have to explore at a different juncture, as we are going to cut back to Gavriel. And let me change this music. Gavriel, what do you do after you grab the Lacunae suit?
So I actually had a question about that, because my pseudo downtime activities are kind of contingent on other people being with me. So if we're still in the same night, I'd like to skip forward in time if this is possible to do.
Absolutely. What do you do?
Well, I mean, I'd like to get back together with people. Is what I'm saying. I think it's more just like this heist has to happen after Kyrrie and I have significant time to discuss and plan. So if anyone else has other stuff that's downtime before we sort of reconvene, I'm abdicating my spot is essentially what I'm saying.
Sounds good. We will turn to you in just a moment then. In just a few minutes, rather. So, Twigg. What is it like when you wake up from that first dream?
Well, unmuting myself would be helpful. Twigg wakes up hard. Like, I think Twigg comes to, like, ready to fight. Which isn't super abnormal, but a little bit more so. This is, I think they had a hard time getting to sleep in the first place, and sleep is elusive. And this is a strange place with strange things, and that dream was worrying some. So I think they come up hard and scanning the room for threats.
Yeah, as you wake up, I think it's like a Wolverine wake up where and you startle a nurse who just kind of like completely nonplussed, just Miss Yi-Mon, and I think that after a moment, that angel appears in the doorway A restless night, I take it?
Par for the course.
I am
Or-
sorry to hear that.
Why?
Because I am hoping that coming here is a place of healing and convalescence. I am sorry that you must be having a hard time to sleep, as sleep is such an important part of recovery.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Well, let's hope that is not anytime soon. So, we have some more tests planned for you today. I may think there may be a way to perhaps find the traces of where your heart might have been or where it might have gone. Is this still something you would like to pursue under my administration?
In confidence, I hope.
Of course. I am nothing but discreet with my patients. The only thing that matters to me is your swift return to health. And you can make me an interaction roll if you'd like.
Yup. I don't trust like that.
All right. For her, I'm gonna say your challenge is 7.
All right. Well, I beat that. That's a 9.
Yeah, seems completely straightforward with you. You kind of actually taking a look at it, you kind of wonder if a being like, almost kind of idly, you probably know for a fact that this is not, it has to be otherwise. You kind of wonder if someone like Yi-Mon is even able to lie.
Yes, please.
Very well. And she administers additional tests. So the first day goes much like the previous one, or the second day rather. And what you find is that this time the birds are beginning to form flight paths around you. And they do it in concert with one another. And they are doing it around the perimeter of your body, flying around your extremities, circling around your torso, also kind of circling in a large loop around that wound in your chest. And where they go, little like wisps of silver magic seem to follow them. These magpies and birds of paradise and small wrens and sparrows, they all just kind of move in concert, like just like as though they were all part of the same species and the same flock. So as they do that, I'm gonna pull another card. The Swan, the companion of vision, swans, blaze, and water. Good fortune, good weather, latent talents. Elegant and serene, the Swan is the companion card of the Vision's family. It is a harbinger of luck, and in particular, it is said to bring calm, favorable weather with it wherever it goes. But as many someones have said, we make our own luck. In this case, the Swan represents that as well. In the midst of a challenge, someone displays a talent, an affinity, or even a magical ability that they didn't know they had. When this happens, it's sometimes called a Swan event. All of this. Okay, something unexpectedly fortuitous occurs to aid the PC. The PC suddenly manifests some new talent or ability. Oh man, this is really good. The regal swan's quiet mind conceals wonders. So, I am going to do a crazy thing for a GM. What do you most want to know? Or, this is the other offering. Would you like, or do you know of a secret of level 4 or below that you would like to learn? You can have the answer to one question completely honestly, or you can learn this ability.
Because that would require me to look stuff up, I'm going to choose the answer to a question.
Okay.
And I mean, there's the obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I?
As the bird spins, as the birds swarm around you, they form that big loop in front of your chest, and that wisping silver energy seems to coalesce into the wide open wings of a swan. And as it does this, it seems to billow a wind about its wings over you. And I am going to give you back a memory. I'm gonna have to change the music for this one. Let's see. Okay. So, you find yourself overlooking a secluded spot in the ruined expanse. And you are looking in the face of a friend. And then another friend joins them. And another friend. And standing before you are a woman with dark black hair, with silver streaks running through it, who's very familiar to you, but you cannot put your finger quite on who it is. All of you are wearing the same military dress uniform. It's similar to the ones, it's the exact same as the ones that you've seen in previous visions, but this is not field uniform. This seems to be dress regalia. No, it's field uniform. I changed my mind. And the one thing you notice about the woman that you do not know is that she is heavily pregnant. The other people you recognize is a figure who, in military bearing, her hair done up, appears to be Kyrrie Van Hollingsworth. And standing next to her, in a similar uniform, is a younger, but no less distinguished and concerned-looking Maurice Webb. And Maurice looks at you, and he says, "So we have the plan then, right?" And your mouth moves outside of its own accord as you mouth the words, "I've done my part." Or rather, you did your part in a question. And Maurice says, "The ritual is ready. She helped." And he points his thumb to Kyrrie. And Kyrie's voice begins to kind of intercede, at which point, but the formulae, there are so many different variables that could take place right now. I'm not even certain that this... And Maurice says, it's okay, I'm confident in you. I know you did. And I'm just pointing out the variables and the factors. I think we've done enough. Okris, it's your part. Do you say anything as this memory plays out?
I guess it's time then.
And as though your hands are not of your own, but they know what to do, you put your hands to Maurice's temples. and you take it away. And then you take your hands and you clasp them to Kyrrie's temples, and you take them away. And the woman looks to you, and you realize I need you to make an actual perception roll on two things. Depending on how you roll, we'll see how this goes.
Okay. Can I use a Benai on that, or?
You may.
Okay. Well, that's a 9 + 1.
Okay. So you get two things. One thing that you notice as your hands run over Kyrrie's temples is there is a heavy scar on one side that was previously unseen to you until you moved your hands there. The second thing that you notice is that the woman that is looking at you, who you don't recognize, she says to you, "So it's done then." And you nod. It's done. And as you are about to pull out of this memory, as it's beginning to grab you and rip you back into reality, you see her shimmer and fade away like a hologram. And you wake up.
Well, I have 30 more questions.
At which point you just hear Yi-Mon's voice say, "Did that help?" And we're going to cut back to Gavriel. Actually, you know what? No. I think that we're not going to cut back. I apologize. We're going to... I think that this is a good note to end on. Yeah. So, guys, thanks so much for having joined us tonight. We had a lot got done this downtime. That said, I would like to go ahead and say, let's do our recaps, because I think we've got a little bit of time for that tonight. Stars and Wishes, but most importantly, Despair and Joy. Starting with Marcy.
Definitely Joy. I got
Awesome.
myself a new outfit.
Woo! Definitely take one acumen for liberating the Rat Goblin of its possession while at the
Nice.
same time appeasing the Roach Goblins. So you may or may not have made inroads there.
Cool.
Yeah. I think Dratsum at one point during chat said, I called it Joe's apartment. Yeah, it's we're getting there. We'll see. So Joy, one acumen. Also, if anybody managed to complete any stages of their character arcs, go ahead and call that out as well. That being said, underneath Marcy, Bill, Despair, Joy, Acumen, character arcs.
Overall, Joy for Maurice. He was able to meet with Kyrrie, tell her about the war report, and played the Spiders game with the Truespider, and was able to, and Ashwin attended the ceremony. You got to see them again, so definitely Joy there. He started the instruction arc, so I'll need to figure out what that is, but he is learning while he is instructing, so we'll see how that goes.
Excellent. All right, Hopper, Despair, Joy. Oh, and take one acumen also for playing Rajathamos and kind of engaging him in storytelling and as a friend rather than as an adversary. Okay, so Hopper, Despair, Joy, Acumen, character arcs. What you got?
Does endless screaming count?
I almost want to.
Can I make screaming noises
You-
instead
you-
of answering?
You can, but please mute. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Screaming noises is my answer. Thank you, Alex. I'm sorry. What is screaming noises? But no, seriously, I guess joy.
All right. Yeah. Take it, Joy.
If I have to choose between a binary option, joy, knowing is better than not knowing.
I will tell you this. Do you feel like this satisfies the requirements of one or more character arcs?
It definitely arguably advances the my super vague "who am I" character arc, which has been the long running one of this character. So yes.
All right. Take 2 acumen for the character arc. Take 1 for your stint in overnight observation, and take 1 joy.
Okay, so it's a total of 3 acumen.
Oh yes, that was a character arc step. You got it. Okay, and finally, Marissa, despair, joy, acumen, character arcs.
I think Kyrrie also takes joy this episode. I think she learned a new spell. She got to watch a Truespider play the spiders game, which is kind of like the purest form of that art, and spent a lot of time basically watching chess, which is just something she enjoys. So she's doing pretty well. She got to see the war report, even if she couldn't read it. That's definitely like, it's a real thing that exists. And in her mind as a librarian, like seeing a text and confirming that it's real is like big news. So she's enjoying all of those things, I think, and also progressing the arc for her new research, her discovering her new way to communicate the grimoire, getting those kind of 3 additional ticks on that countdown clock. I think she is pleased about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So take 1 joy. You've already did your countdown ticks. So to take 1 acumen for all of your observations and kind of like this experience of things. And we're going to call that a session. I am going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and do shout outs. Everybody in the same order. Marcy, shout outs for this week.
Well, you know what's coming. This Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern time, like usual. Please come back to this same channel for Flights of Fandom, because we're going to be in our 4th episode now already of our Star Wars flight long shot. And you really, really, really want to see a couple of aliens try to infiltrate an Imperial party in formal dress. That's going to be the best. You wanna come watch that? What can I say? How can I sell that any further?
I love that. Yeah, you don't need to sell it any further. It's fantastic. Bill, shout outs.
Oh gosh. I enjoyed sharing the scene stage with Kyrrie, Marissa. This session that was really great, and Zach liked to shout out the sprinkling of the memories for Twigg. That was one of my favorite moments so far. So that was a lot of fun. My perennial plugs. Party of One at Party of One Pod, Jeff Stormer, where the gaming table is always set for 2. It's a great way to get introduced to non-D&D RPGs and have fun while you do it. And of course, our friends at Encounter Party. Check that out. Ravnica 5e actual play.
Duncan agrees.
Duncan agrees.
Hopper, shout outs.
Can I actually go last?
Yeah, sure, totally. Marissa, you're up. What you got?
Yeah, hat tip right back to Bill for a lot of your really great character work today. Especially I enjoyed the scene with Maurice and the Truespider. I think that kind of game was really, really lovely. And then just shout out from me, my Good Place in Philosophy book has published now, so go get yourself a copy. It's super great. There's a foreword by Mike Shore, and the Emmys are next weekend, so hopefully Good Place will win some well-deserved awards.
Awesome. Can't wait. For my own part, shout out to all my incredible, amazing players. I cannot wait to see where you guys go from here. that was a lot of fun, and I always love that pleasant surprise where there's a card turn where somebody really just wants to know something, and I finally get to give that to them. So shout out to all y'all, and then shout out to actually, I cannot wait to shout out for the upcoming Flights of Fandom game that will be coming in October, and you guys will learn more about that as time passes. There's a Session 0 document and everything. Anyhow, Hopper, I believe you wanted to go last.
Yeah. I have a mix of stuff. Some of them are a little bit more serious and some of them are a little bit more happy. But yeah, on Tuesday, Ewok infiltrating a formal party. That's going to go great. That's how that works. In a slightly more serious note, the world is a little bit bonkers right now. And for those of you that are not aware, September is Suicide Awareness Month. And we are entering a period where things are going to be very hard. And like, especially if you're in America. And just, keep in touch with people and reach out. And in general, I think it's very easy for people to feel very isolated right now. And like I, for one, like even if I legitimately don't know you and you're just watching this on YouTube and it's December and you're fucking feeling like shit, you can always hit me up on the interwebs. I'm at fail deadly on most things because the world is typically bitter with you in it, unless you're a Nazi, and then don't be a Nazi. In other shout outs, yeah, come check us out on Tuesdays, Flights of Fandom, and we are looking forward to seeing you there and in the future as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And I will echo Hopper's statement and just say, look, if exactly, reach out to the people who need it. Be sensitive to everybody who is struggling right now, and try to be a shoulder if you can, because I know it's hard. Be a shoulder to lean on. Support where you can, and just I hope that the invisible sun shines on you all. So thanks so much, guys. Stick around for the raid, and we will be back in 2 weeks for the next step of this crazy ride.